Hello there. Let's show you how to set up a gradebook in BrightSpace Desire to Learn. And this video is, what is this date today? It's November 3rd, 2020. So that's the version. I'm not sure what the version is, but we have the latest updated versions of BrightSpace or version of BrightSpace here. So let's go set up a class from scratch, gradebook. Well, step one, select your class. We're going to do this for spinal anatomy. Great. Go to Assessments. Go to Grades. Okay, by default, it should the setup wizard should pop up. If for some reason it's on Manage Grades or any other setting, if you see something like that, or if it pops up on something like that, I have to block those patients out or those students out. That's not your gradebook. That's just the final. So you need to set it up. So you will go to Setup Wizard, but you shouldn't have to worry about that. It should be by default. All right, so here we go. So let's click Start the Setup Wizard. And I like to use a point system based on 100 points. It's the way I've always done it, so that's the way I'm going to show you, a point system. Click Continue. And final grade release. So make sure this is ticked. Adjusted final grade allows you to modify or adjust the user's grade before releasing. Definitely, you don't want it. I want to look at stuff before I release it. And then automatically release final grades. And so when enabled, the system automatically makes users final grade or marks users final grade as released once created. You can still alter the release status after being automatically released. So you definitely want that. At least that's the way I've always done it. So those are all default settings. This is important. If you click Treat Ungraded Item as 0, the students won't have an accurate idea of where they are, because if you have, let's say, 5 quizzes set up, they're going to have a really bad, they're all going to have F's because it's calculating those ungraded quizzes as 0. So you definitely want drop ungraded item so it keeps a running tally of where the student is. Otherwise they'll have no idea where they are in class. And then automatically keep final grade updated. Yes, you always want that. So next one. Default grading system. I like the percentages so they can see how close they are. If you just choose letter grades, then they won't be able to see how close they are to an A or B. So I always choose percentages. There's other options. You could choose just pass fail here or letter grade, but I'm going with percentages. All right, I think 2 is excessive, but let's go 1 decimal. So that'll just tell you on the percentages how is it 89.9 rather than 89.09. That's 2 decibels. 1 decibel is fine. Then you have to readjust that here. That should be default in my opinion. Okay, the student, what do you want the student to see? I want them to see everything. The point grade, the grade, the A, B, or C grade, and give them a little grade color too. I think that helps as well. This is what the student will see on their end. 1 decibel to keep it in sync with yours. And display final grade calculation. I don't choose that. They don't need to see that, I don't think. So I've never used that. Continue. All right, we are done with the setup. Great. So hit, and that just shows you where you are. You can go back if you don't like what we see here, but that's the way we've set it up. Click Finish. Now you're not done yet, though. All right, great. So we kind of created the underworkings of our gradebook, but now let's create the actual categories. And this might be different for all of you, but this class has a lecture and it has a lab, and that's it. I give 2 tests in lab and 2 tests in lecture. I give a midterm lab and midterm lecture, and a final lab and final lecture. So and there's categories. So the grade, this is always confusing. Category versus an item. So a category is a main heading. That would be lecture tests would be one category. Lab tests would be the other category. In each category, we would have an item, and those would be the actual midterm and final. So we would have an item for the lecture midterm and an item for the lecture final. And the same, we'll have another item for the midterm in lab and another item for the final in lab. So I'm going to need 2 categories, and I'm going to need 4 of these items. Right? So let's see how that works. Let's create a category. Let's call these lecture exams. Lecture exams. You can make it shorter there. I don't write examinations. It takes up too much space in the gradebook if you do it that way. Okay, so grading. Can they get more than 100%? On my lecture tests, it's possible if I give, and you can always change this later too if you decide, but I do give a couple extra credits, and it's possible to get over 100%. So they can exceed. You definitely don't want to exclude it from the final grade calculation. I mean, this is a huge part of the grade. Now this is the point that gets confusing here. So the distribution. So you have to know how many tests you're going to give. I'm giving 2 tests, and they are going to be worth, my total class is worth 100 points. So my lab, or my total lecture, is going to be worth 80 points, and my lab exams are going to be worth 20 points. And you make that up, that's whatever you decide. But then for this category, the lecture exam, I need to know how many points per item. Remember, item was the actual midterm and the final. So it'll be half of 80. So each one of these, click this, distribute points. Each one of these will be worth 40 points. And we'll see how this works here in a second. I don't mess around with these settings, but this just means that each item, and I already know ahead of time there's 2 items that are going to be under my grade category. So each one of those is going to add up to 80. So I got half the work done here, if that makes. You'll see what I mean here in a second when we get this set up. That's always confusing. I like the class to see how they're doing. So I let them see the class average, where they're at. I like to see the distribution of how everybody did on the test. And that's it. Everything else, you can't mess with those. Those are locked in stone. All right, we created our first category. Click Save and Close. And great, there it is. There's our first lab, or our first category. So now we could fill that with items, but let's make the other category. And so how do you make a new category here? You go to New, and then we don't want to make an item yet. Let's make the other category. And now we're going to do the same thing, only for these will be called lab exams. Lab exams. Great. Now my labs, they can't exceed. Well, yeah, I guess they could. It's possible. So let's let them exceed that, because I do offer an extra credit sometimes. You definitely don't want to exclude it. I don't even know why that box is there. Now here we go again. So now we need to set up the distribution for the 2 lab exams. Well, I know my lab total. My lab exams are worth 20 points. Remember, my lecture exams were worth 80 points total. My lab exams will be worth 20 points total, and that totals up to 100% or 100. So I know that I have 2 lab exams, a midterm and a final. So, and remember, those midterm and final exams are called, those are called items. So therefore, if that, they'll be worth, oh, it was already in there. They'll be worth 10 points apiece. Okay, I hope that makes sense, and you'll see once I show you how everything looks, you'll understand that more. But hopefully you understood that. Yes, display averages, yes. Don't override display options. I mean, I guess I could if I for some reason if I wanted to. Oh, I don't want to show them the grade color. This, I mean, you do have that, but I just leave it the same. Okay, save. Now we're going to have our two categories. Our gradebook is looking like a gradebook now, but now there's nothing there. There's no points or anything. What's going on? Well, now we need to finish by setting up the items because we don't have any tests in here yet. We just have the skeleton. So now let's go back to new and let's set up our items. So we're going to need to do 4 of these things. And it's a little different system. So numeric, because we're using a point system, a number point system, so you want to go numeric. All right. And now these are items, so now we're going to have, let's work with our lecture. So we'll do lecture, midterm. Okay. Now here's the key. Where's this grade item going to go? Under what category are we going to put this? Well, here's the category. We have to tell it where to go. And oh look, there's our main categories that we've made already. So these are going to go under lecture exams under the main category. Great. And you can see the maximum points is 40. You can't change that because we already set that up. Remember we described that. You can exceed, yes. This is not a bonus, so don't, if you can set up bonuses as well, but that's a different lecture or different video. You don't want to exclude it. The default is percentage. You just leave everything alone and we're done. Click save and close. Wow, look at that. Cool. So it's under, there's our category, there's our first grade item, but we're not done. We need to make another one, so let's go make the lecture final item. Numeric. Okay. Lecture final. Lecture final. Don't forget to do this. Category. Lecture exams. And if you screw up, you can always delete this gradebook and start over. Okay. The grade item is given 40 points max. Yep. We can't. We've already set that. We can't exceed. That's up to you. Everything else is the same. Hey, look at that. Our gradebook is, at least for the lecture exams, is done. And look, max points over here. And these are all going to add up to 100. Okay, let's do the same thing. Now we have lab exams, but we don't have any tests in here. And the tests are the grade items. So let's go make our tests. These are items. Let's make an item. Numeric, same story. But now we're going to name it lab midterm. Great. The most important thing, we got to assign these. Where's this test going to go? Is it going to go to lecture exams? No, we already did that. It's going to go to lab exams. All right. And this is locked. We already set that up when we set up the category. So that's max. We can exceed. Sure, why not? That's not going to hurt anything by checking that. And yep, the percentages. This is not a bonus. Awesome. One more time there. Let's check it. There it is. Lab midterm. All right, we got one more test to set up, or one more item. Numeric. Lab final. Lab final. Very important. The category. Lecture, right? Lecture exam. Max is 10 points. What would happen? What if we hit by mistake lecture exam? Whoa, look, it gets more points. But then this would go under the lecture exam category, and we don't want that. It's got to go lab exam. Okay, can exceed? Sure, why not? Maybe I'll give them extra credit questions or something. Percentage is default. Okay, we are done. Close and save. And there is our beautiful gradebook all set up. 40 and 40 is 80, 90, 100. Great. And let's go. So this is managed. So if you wanted to erase all this, let's say you wanted to erase all this stuff, you could go to actually more actions, delete, and you could delete this whole thing if you wanted. And you could start over. So if you screw up, that's how you get rid of this, and you could start over from scratch. We definitely don't want to do that, though. So I'm going to cancel out of that. All right, let's see what it looks like. If I go enter grades, I have to block these students' names out. So enter grades, and our beautiful gradebook should pop right up. There it is. Look at that. I won't scroll down because then I have to block more names out. And of course, you know how to enter grades, right? Enter grades, you can't enter anything in this mode. You have to go over here, switch to the spreadsheet view, and now we can enter our grades. But see how that's all set up? And it'll come out as a percentage, and it gives a letter grade, and it gives a color scheme, and you can figure that out as you go. Alright, so I hope this video helped you guys, and we will see you in the next video.